Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-Bit Podsmash.
80-Bit Podsmash, where gaming goes to grab a beer.
We are your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite.
And 80-Bit Podsmash is a weekly video game podcast where we smash conversations about video games with topics that you care about. Tonight, we are joined by who I like to call our resident termite expert, but we are joined for the first time by Termite's brother, Tommy, also known as TBone.
TBone, how's it going?
Let me tink you in, because you kind of missed that.
Yes.
There you
Yeah, that's it. Now he's in the podcast. Now it's official.
go. That's tinked in.
Tommy is joining us mostly out of convenience because we all just got done watching the Microsoft E3 press conference, which you will have already heard if you listen to our bonus episode on it. But it happened now for us, so, you know, timing and all that
So
stuff.
we're freshly pumped up.
Yeah,
We are jacked on video game stuff.
Yeah, but you've heard all the details from that already. We will
We're not
have
gonna
gone
rehash it
over.
here.
We're not going to rehash it exactly. But it's just to provide context. He was watching that with us, and now he's joining us for recording to talk with us today about cross-platform experiences, cross-platform play, also known as crossplay.
It's the new buzzword.
It
at the beginning of
is.
this feed
It's
these
super
days.
buzzword. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. It's been in the back of my head. I don't know why I haven't pulled the trigger. Like, why we haven't pulled the trigger on it. I guess we just had more interesting discussions, but I'm kind of regretting it now because it's so prolific now that, like, it's no longer a hot take. And I was going to have a hot take on cross-platform play. So
Impossible for us to have hot takes. We record 2 and 3 weeks ahead of time.
that's true, but I mean, like, I wanted to have this conversation like a year ago while crossplay was still fairly controversial.
Yeah.
And now it's like, now it's just going to be the new thing. So, But still, we're going to talk about it, all the implications of it. And,
I want to know why it's controversial, so we'll talk about it.
well, it was controversial.
We'll
It doesn't
talk-
seem like
yeah,
it's- we'll
yeah,
talk
we'll
about it.
get there.
But T-Bone's joining us today, so he's going to give the input as much or little input as he wants. But he was watching that with us, so we're like, "Hey, why don't you join us for recording?" And he was like, "I'll do it."
I'll give it a shot. Why not?
But while you're our guest, we like to let our guests kind of talk about themselves for a little bit. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Tommy? What you can tell us what you do. You can talk about your gaming history, what kind of games you like. I've heard a little bit of it from Termite in the past, but we wanted to give you a chance to say it from the horse's mouth.
Yes, Termite has mentioned me a few times, but I am a drafting at a telecommunications company. So I work with AutoCAD, and I design telecommunications fiber optic routes, mostly up in Northern Virginia and DC areas. And as for my gaming history, pretty much similar to Termite, as he's mentioned in the past. I caught the tail end of the 8-bit era.
Yeah,
And
got that Mario 3.
Yep, Mario 3, Mario 1, the original, Duck Hunt, and various other games. We had a neighbor that had an NES. We played games over there. Caught the tail end of that, but the majority of us growing up was the 16-bit era, the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis era. Sonic, Mortal Kombat, and Super Mario World, UN Squadron.
Going to those old, antiquated, no longer existing video game stores to go rent games every weekend.
Yes,
How awesome was that?
Every weekend. We never really bought much games. It was rare. We didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, so we had birthdays and Christmases mostly, but most of the time we just rented games. So
Nice. What do you play now? What kind of games are you into now?
RPGs is my ultimate favorite. So anything action, turn-based, strategy RPGs. Currently playing like Disgaea, Final Fantasy Tactics. Strategy RPGs are a real favorite of mine as well. So anything with character building, progression, story heavy is usually my favorite, but I do play other ones. Fighting games. I dabble a little in racing games every now and then. I used to play them a lot as a kid, but I've kind of grown away from them. But yeah, and then action adventure games, Gears of War. And I haven't tried Division yet, but I've been wanting to play that too. So, but that's usually my area there.
Sweet.
Awesome. When you said that you are the tail end of the 8-bit era, it
Yes.
made me think that we need a third host on the podcast at some point. And
Someone older.
someone a little bit older than you who would have had their formative years during like Atari and NES. And then we can rename the podcast to 88-Bit Podsmash.
We need a permanent third seat.
Permanent, yep. No, that was a little joke. All right. Well, Tommy, thanks for joining us. We're happy that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Now we're going to, you are one of Termite's favorite people and one of my favorite people, if I'm going to be completely honest. But as well as our favorite people, doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
So that's what it sounds like. Wow.
Sorry. No.
Yeah, I don't know if it sounds better or worse. you
The
might be the judge
man
of that.
behind the curtain has been revealed. The veil has been pulled back.
There's a lot of excitement in that, more so than it sounds, just audio only.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
That's what we're
When
going
you
for.
like actually can
Yes.
look at us bouncing up and down.
Yes.
Yeah,
You just
that's
see
a
it
whole
in
new
their
level.
face, lit up like Christmas trees.
Nice. That's your like exclusive look at the
Yes.
at
Front
the,
row seat, baby.
Yep. All right. Favorite things is a chance for us to share with you the thing that we're interested in this week, the thing that we're digging, and yeah, in hopes that you might find your favorite things.
It can be something as shallow as I didn't burn a single kernel of popcorn in this bag, and it's amazing. It's the best bag of popcorn I've ever
I
had.
read and asked Reddit about why don't like the first kernels that pop, why don't they burn? And it's
Right.
because they rise to the top, and so they get further away from the heat source. They pop above all the seeds, and so they're that further removed.
Yeah, but in
from
a
the heat
microwave,
source.
heat's all around you.
Yeah, that too. Sorry, that was a complete tangent.
I
does
love
it?
it though, right?
Why is the center always colder?
Right.
So it can be
Does
as
it work?
profound as that, or it can be
Or-
as simple as a huge life change, like moving across the country.
That's
See
not
how
simple.
I switched? I switched those
Oh,
two.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
Are you moving across the country?
No, I'm not moving across.
Are
the
you moving
country.
across the country?
Been playing on it.
Okay. All right.
Good.
We're all
good,
here.
Good. All right. So, TBone, will you do us the honors of talking about your favorite thing this week?
Let's see. Favorite thing. I haven't really done nothing too exciting. I finished up an anime series called Baki, which is
How do you spell that?
Baki.
Ah.
They came out with I guess another, I don't know if it was another arc. There was the original in the 90s called Baki the Grappler. And I guess this series picked up a little bit after that. Basically, it's a fighting anime, sort of along the lines of like the old school Dragon Ball, Naruto, but maybe not over the top as those shows. But it's dark and gritty, a lot of violence. But in the story, I would say is the best. It's a little weak. Some of the fight scenes were kind of randomized and just didn't make sense why certain people were fighting certain people. But the action scenes are really good. And it ended off on a cliffhanger. They're getting ready to start a huge tournament that happens every 100 years. Combining all various styles of martial arts, and it looks like it's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that's like. But it's a pretty good show. Not the best for story, but if you like action, I definitely recommend it.
Baki. Go check it out.
Yes.
Sweet. My favorite thing is, excuse me while I release some beer.
That was so beautiful.
Thank you. We just pounded a bunch of Taco Bell in celebration of the Microsoft E3 press conference because it was the biggest press conference this year, and I approached it like the Super Bowl, and I was like, we got to have Taco Bell while we're watching it. All of that drama aside, and while I am burping now, my favorite thing is we just put a new roof on my shed. And that was awesome because it was a huge burden on my shoulders trying to figure out how to get this thing done because it entailed a massive entire day's worth of work. TBone here helped me out. I thank you
Yes.
for that. It was awesome. It was
problem.
a super hot, long day in the
It was
sun.
a whole family event, wasn't
It
it?
was.
Your dad helped you out
Yep,
too.
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's here.
Yeah, right. But
But shout out to my dad too, because he did the much lion's share of all the work and all the thinking and the planning and
That's
logistics.
the best thing
and-
about dads, especially dads.
How does he know all of that?
Yeah, our dads, like the generation. I don't know how to say it. Our dad's generation is like the know how to do everything generation. Like my dad's like, oh yeah, I researched how to like completely repair the brakes on your car this weekend. Let's get to work on it. Like what? You mean you just learned how to do this? Yeah, I just watched some YouTube videos. It made sense. What?
He just knows.
They know how to do all this stuff. It's awesome. Dads are the best.
We're gonna pull up a section of the floor of the shed that was rotted by a hole in the roof, and so
Wow.
we replaced a corner of the floor, made it more sturdy. He just knew how to do it, and we did the whole roof, tore the whole thing off, and put new roof on and shingles. And now I have a space to store stuff, so it's one step closer to having a room which we can record with a camera.
Sweet.
So
Ooh.
it does affect the audience. That's
secrets
part of
revealed.
my
Things are coming forward.
part of my excitement. No, most of it was because our second child's on the way, and we need space to put things
Yeah.
for the nursery. So crazy, but it was awesome. It was my favorite thing.
Nice. My favorite thing is this past Friday was National Donut Day. And work promise. They put posters up this previous Monday, they put posters up saying National Donut Day on Friday. We'll have donuts in the galley, which is, I guess, the kitchen of our office. I think I looked it up because I was curious. And a galley is like a kitchen without an oven
Oh, really?
or something like that. Like
I thought it was a ship thing.
like it's originally was a ship thing, but it's come to be expanded to like any kitchen that has like a.
Makes me think of
like-
Diddy Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country 2.
Diddy Kong
Quest.
Country.
Well, that's why I said that. I was joking. I was like, so
I was
wait,
like-
we have a ship here in the office?
What?
Yeah.
But anyways,
Huh.
so donuts in the galley, and I was all excited about it. I was so excited the entire week. I was like, I get to eat donuts on Friday, and work is paying for them. I'm so excited. Well, Friday comes around, and there's no donuts when I walk in. I'm like, that's fine. Whoever is getting the donuts probably just isn't here yet. Noon rolls around, still no donuts. And this is when I start to foment rebellion.
Oh, that's what
in
that
the office.
post on Facebook was
Yes,
about.
I saw that too.
Like,
It
what are
was.
you talking
I start
about?
to foment dissatisfaction. I say, it's already noon and there's not donuts, guys. What's going on?
Yeah.
And people in the office start chattering. But, you get the like, oh, well, maybe they're just come in like after lunch or whatever. 3 o'clock-ish, 2:30 rolls
no
around,
donuts.
and it is like all chaos. Like, my work was about to start rebellion. We were picketing like outside
Walking
our
out,
CEO's
staging.
office. It was crazy. No, I'm being a little facetious, but the people were like, we were like taking the posters and writing liar on them with red marker.
There were actually flyers.
There were flyers and pieces of people that hung up and were like, we have been betrayed. Turns out, I found out later that the person who was supposed to deliver the donuts had a family emergency, so I do feel a little bit bad about fomenting rebellion. But honestly, my favorite thing was not so much the donuts themselves or lack thereof. It was the fact that my office just went crazy because there weren't donuts and everybody was ranting about it. It was pretty funny.
What you
So,
should have done
I had a good time.
was hop into your car and drive down and pick up 6 dozen donuts and supply the whole company with donuts.
I should have done that, but I was
How
working.
good would you
I would have been awesome, but I was
Nobody
also
would've noticed
working.
your lack of presence at
That's
work.
true, yeah. But I
20
should
minutes to
have
go get
volunteered. I should be
donuts.
like, guys, I'm gonna get the donuts.
Like, I got you.
Someone give me your company card. But no, it was just fun to just like everyone was over, like no one was serious, but we were all just kind of like facetiously overreacting together. It ended up being a really fun day at work because we were all having fun with the
So either way, you had fun.
the great donut crisis of 2019.
No
yeah,
nuts.
exactly. Yeah, the great no nut crisis of 2019. Me and my wife ended up going to Krispy Kreme when I got off work and getting a dozen donuts. Anyways, so I still got my National
Got your
Donut
fix.
donuts.
And the rage was satisfying.
And even better, the rage was satisfying. And even better, they promised to bring donuts on Monday. So I get more National Donut donuts on Monday.
You
I'm
must love
stoked.
donuts.
I love donuts, dude. I will say this about donuts. This is my final thought about donuts, and then we can move on. I like a lot of desserts,
Yeah.
but there are few pure, unadulterated joys in life that no one can take from you than getting minute-old donuts from Krispy Kreme and eating them in the parking lot.
It's
Like,
pretty great.
like the donuts are minutes old, seconds old if you really
Yeah.
if you were really pushing it time-wise.
Yeah.
Like if you pay for the donuts ahead of time and then they'd give them to you, you can have second old donuts.
Yeah.
And truly, it is just amazing experience.
Mhm.
I could rant about it. I could have a whole podcast.
My
about
wife and I
Krispy
used to go
Kreme.
get a half a dozen regularly.
Yeah.
Fresh ones.
Uh-huh.
3 each.
It's
in
great.
A, like jar of milk.
And like you can't get that with ice cream. You can't get that with cupcakes. Don't get me wrong. I love a lot of desserts, but being able to eat a dessert that is seconds old is just, and especially a donut where it's like pure sugar,
yeah.
amazing. So I do love donuts a lot.
You could get that with ice cream if you go to a creamery.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah.
But,
I've never had
but it's a
that.
whole different kind of thing. It's apples and oranges, to be honest. But
Okay.
donuts, I love them. So I'm happy. I'm excited. Donut day. Woo! All right. That's favorite things. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to talk about where gaming goes to grab a beer. What beer we're drinking today?
Oh, we're drinking Schmittix again.
Yeah, Smittix. Oh, Smittix.
Uh-oh.
Don't you mean Smithwicks?
Here we go.
No, I mean Smittix.
Yes.
Yeah, anyone who listened to it like 2 episodes ago might have heard my me reading the back of the Smittix as an Irish accent, so Termite wanted me to bring it back. But that's what we're drinking tonight.
A ruby red brew with a gentle hop bitterness and a sweet malt finish.
It's good.
It is good.
Yeah. So, that gets that out of the way, which opens us up for DLC, downloadable content. DLC is a little mini fun discussion that we have in our podcast.
Side bit.
Little side bit.
Extra, a little something,
yeah,
something.
a little
That's
something, something.
Just
I like
as
that.
free as the Borderlands 2 DLC
Ooh,
that was just announced
something,
and dropped
something.
tonight.
But unlike-
Shadow drop, boom.
But
Or
unlike the DLC.
3 weeks from now, when
Right.
this podcast drops.
right, right, yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, exactly. Almost during the time when it's going to expire and have to be $15 again. DLC is a conversation about video games that you probably wouldn't normally have. So we want you to think about that, and maybe then you can have your own little DLC discussions with your friends at the bar or whatever. But tonight's DLC is in honor of the fact that it's E3 hype and we're all hyped. We're doing one of our games, another game. So it's not blank blank, but it's the other one where it was like, who did this or who sent me this? So tonight it's who announced this? And we're doing the game.
announced this?
Who announced this? It's going to be a little bit in reverse, and we're going to pick video game characters, and then we're going to then speculate what announcements they would make in their fictional worlds about their lives or about what they've got going on.
Oh,
So,
all right.
so for example, if you were to say a video game character like, I don't know, Sephiroth. And then you and I would be like, oh, Sephiroth is going to announce his cool new, like, extra long katana. The Katana 1X.
Masamune 2.
Yeah, there you go, Masamune X. So, that's kind of the idea behind it. But since we are joined by T-Bone, we're going to let him do the honors of picking the characters, and then we'll all speculate together what those announcements would look like and what they would be. So, T-Bone, you have we told you to think of 2 video game characters, so why don't you fire your first one? What's a video game character?
Banjo.
Ooh, Banjo.
What's Banjo announcing?
Banjo is going to announce his new backpack bird to the chagrin of Kazooie. And this background bird is going to be called...
oh wait, no, I got it, because kazoo is like an instrument. So, Banjo Woodblocky.
Woodblocky.
And he's a woodpecker.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
And Kazooie is so angry and jealous and bitter, more than she already is. It's a she, right?
I don't know.
Yes, I believe it is a she.
Okay, I had to second
I'm
guess
pretty
myself.
sure.
So
Yes.
out of irritation, Kazooie announces her new partner, Mandolin.
Is it a man?
Mandolin Kazooie.
Say, because, it's 2019, it's Pride Month. So maybe Kazooie announces her new partner.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Who's also...
Mandolin, ironically, is a female.
Is a female. Yes. There we go. Great.
What type of animal is Mandolin?
But also, as a side note, after Banjo's announcement of his new partner, then he's like, but one more thing. I'm also in Smash. Boom!
Nice.
The funny part is, if that actually happens between now and this podcast, we don't know about it.
Right, we don't know yet.
Complete prediction.
Yeah, that's
that
funny.
had come true.
That's funny. Cool. All right, that's
we still
one.
don't know what kind of animal a mandolin is.
Oh, it's gonna be something similar to a bear, but not actually a bear. So like a panda.
Something that still walks on 2 feet.
Yeah.
Well, bears don't really walk on 2 feet.
I guess pandas are a bear. Maybe a koala. Isn't like a koala not actually a bear?
But then you have the alliteration, Banjo the bear.
Oh.
Mandolin the...
Manchurian Candidate.
What? Isn't that a Native American?
No, I don't know. The Manchurian Candidate was a movie. It was like a political intrigue movie.
Oh.
I could see it as just a politician. Just like a politician.
Wow. Okay, what's the second video game character, T-Bone?
Let's go with Squall from Final Fantasy VIII.
Squall.
Nice.
See, the easy pick would be that he announces a new Gunblade.
Yeah.
But we don't want to do that.
I had to get away from Final Fantasy VII.
I kind of think Squall announces, turns out, guys, I'm also a reincarnated sorceress. Surprise. And now I want to take over the world.
So he's like Bayonetta?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, Squall is the reincarnation of Bayonetta, straight up.
Oh, okay. That's his announcement.
That's the announcement.
I would like to announce to the world.
You know how Renoa was the reincarnation of Ultimisia? Well, I also am the reincarnation of a sorceress, and her name is Bayonetta.
And I'm drawing all blanks because I never actually finished Final Fantasy VIII, and I didn't even know Renoa was a reincarnated anything.
She's not. I think she was like the host body for the spirit of Ultimisia, but then like Squall and others stopped it, so she ended up reincarnating somewhere else. I don't know. It was weird. What? It was a really weird plot.
Yeah,
it had to do with sorceresses. I know that.
I need to play this game for its story.
It's fun. It's actually really fun. It was actually a really I thought it was a really compelling story.
A lot of people like it more than 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do.
A bunch of haters.
I haven't played it since it came out, so my memory is very, very hazy with that storyline. Yeah. So I'd like to revisit it at some point.
It's good. All right. Well, everybody, tell us what your video game character announcements would be if they had their own press conferences in their worlds.
Yeah.
And that's DLC.
There we go.
Nice, we got it.
I gotta get in on there and get in on the action.
The rap horns are easy to get in on. Yep, because they're so addictive.
I just do it for fun in my spare time. I mean,
exactly.
It's so easy to do.
I'm just chilling in my boxers in my own room. I'm just like,
by myself. That's right.
I'm playing some PlayStation.
Whenever you go talk to your boss, you're like, hey, can I talk to you about something?
Good idea.
I've got an idea for how we can optimize our workflow.
First person that does that in drive-thru, I'll get their order. I'll pay for it. Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order? Bow, 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 bow. I'm going to have 2 Whoppers, and I'll take another side of fries to go with my brother.
That's what we need
here.
to do. We need to do like a social media push where we have all of our pod smashers rap horn at us. Take a clip of Snapchat of them rap horning or something.
Yes.
Do your rap horns. Then we'll compile it
Instagram
all
stories.
together in like a single sound
Video.
clip, and then that will just be our new DLC.
Yeah, we just play a button instead of doing it ourselves.
Or we'll try to imitate everyone's
that'd be funny.
DLCs. All right, that's DLC. Woo! Now we can move on to our main topic.
Speaking of interacting with us,
Oh, snap.
you can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com.
You thought I was going to announce the main topic, but instead...
Termite's going to give you a pseudo ad read. 80bitpodsmash.com is our landing website where you can find links to our iTunes, Google Play, Spitter, Spotify, and Stitcher, iHeartRadio. Those are all of the podcast platforms featured on our website, but we also are available through our RSS feed pretty much anywhere you want. And if we're not where you want us to be, let me know and I'll put us there. You can find us on social media platforms such as Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at 80bitpodsmash, 80bit podsmash. And there's no hyphens, uppercases, lowercases, or funny business.
Nice. What exactly is funny business? We always say it, but like...
What it could be like
ampersands.
zeros instead of 1, or like number 0 instead of O, or like 1s instead of
Or we could have
Ls,
spelled out 80,
threes and
EIGHTY.
Yeah, I mean, like, there could be so many weird things. No, this is just 80bit podsmash.
Nice.
PODSMASH.
I've always been curious. That's just been
Yeah.
popped in my head like, what is funny business?
Right.
Cool.
That's what I was thinking.
All right. So our main topic today, we will be talking about cross-platform experiences, namely crossplay. And yeah, so let's just start. What is cross-platform, says the person who has not been with it for the last several months. But seriously, what does it mean to be for something to be cross-platform?
It is a very recent movement in the video game industry to unify all of the platforms to allow each other to play games online together. So, if you are living in a box and you don't know what's going on in the gaming world, it has been established in the PS2 and original Xbox and GameCube times that each console has their own servers for online games, and it continued to move forward in the Xbox 360, PS3 times with games like Call of Duty and Halo. Well, I mean, Halo's an Xbox exclusive anyway, but with any third-party games like Payday 2 or, like I mentioned earlier, Call of Duty, if you had an Xbox, you can only play on Xbox with Xbox people. If you had a PlayStation 3, you could only play on PlayStation 3 with PlayStation 3 people through Sony's servers. Each of them had their own pay per monthly subscription service that you'd have to pay for, and then PC players had their own like free online platforms that were still isolated from the consoles entirely. So we talk about like Borderlands 2 and its new DLC, for example. If you wanted to jump on and play, even right now today, it's locked to its console, and so is The Division 2, and so is Destiny 2. And so we're seeing this movement in the gaming industry now where we want to bridge those gaps. So it's called cross-platform. Dauntless just came out. It's a free-to-play game. It's like Monster Hunter, and it released day one, cross-platform. So if I have it on my Xbox One, T-Bone's got it on his PlayStation 4, we can play together, and Dan can jump in on his PC. Both Fortnite and Rocket League have migrated to cross-platform, and Fortnite so much is on your cell phones even. You can play Fortnite from your phone with Xbox people, PlayStation, and PC. So that's cross-platform. Why is this cool?
Yeah, it's cool because I mean, just so we'll talk more about pros and cons later, but I've been thinking about cross-play for a long time, and part of that's because when I was interested in getting Destiny, one of the things that was frustrating was I had some friends playing it on Xbox, some friends playing it on PS4. And when they announced that it was coming to PC, I had some people who were diehard like, oh yeah, we're only going to play it on PC. It's frustrating to like have multiple friends who have different platform preferences, and they should have every right to prefer a platform, but it's just unfortunate that I can't play with them. And it's always been a disappointment to me that I can't play with them, depending on what particular platform. It's almost actually 100% the reason why I bought a PS4 was because I wanted to play games with my friends who, in this area, when I moved here, all had PS4s, as opposed to my friends from home who all had PCs. So, and didn't really console play.
So you would have just stayed on your PC if it wasn't
I probably would have stayed on PC. In hindsight, I'm glad that I did get a PS4 because of the exclusives, but it still just, again, a lot of my motivation for getting the game was who can I play games with? I would like a world where I wouldn't have to think about that. So that leads me to my next question. What does a world look like that has fully realized cross-platform play? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can play on whatever platform you want with whomever you want.
And you don't have to buy the game twice. So
Yeah,
you buy it on one platform, and that's it. Because I had that issue with Borderlands 2.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had a lot of my friends played that on the Xbox 360, and then I had some friends that wanted to play it on the PC, so I had to buy it twice to play it. Luckily, it was on sale for $15, which is a pretty good deal. Just stay at home, make a sandwich instead of spending at a restaurant. There's my $15, but spend it towards Borderlands. But yeah, I mean, if new game releases it sells, you're not going to want to pay $60 twice or 3 times, one for PC, one for Xbox, one for, say, Nintendo Switch or a Sony. So
yeah, the other implication that comes to mind is it would increase, consoles would have to do more with peripherals, or at least they could do more with peripherals. So things like if you wanted to play on Xbox, for example, and because you like the system, you paid money for it, and you like having all your stuff in one thing. But say you prefer to play with mouse and keyboard. Well, it's very possible that there's no reason why an Xbox can't work with a mouse and keyboard already.
They do.
They do, exactly.
With Microsoft now to make it.
And many of those third-party games
Xbox
that also release on PC are, obviously already compatible with
controllers,
with mouse and keyboard or controllers. So it just makes sense to me that we may not necessarily see it with. I can see Sony being a pain in regards to mouse and keyboard because they want you to use their DualShocks. They kind of push that on you. But Microsoft, for sure, they seem open to a lot of things. I can definitely see them being like, hey, we're going to license our own Xbox official mouse and keyboard and allow for mouse and keyboard play because, again, as we'll talk about in the drawbacks of cross-platform, one of the biggest complaints against it is people with mouses and keyboard are always going to be better at the competitive games.
Yes.
But in my mind, I'm like, well, there's absolutely no reason why, there's no technical reason why you can't use a mouse and keyboard on a console. So if you want to compete at the highest level, you are responsible for getting the hardware required to compete. Would be my thought about that.
And this is the first console generation with the unified architecture too. This is the Xbox One, PS4 were announced to have the same x86 platform as PCs. And so now there's really no excuse to have mouse and keyboard support across everything. In the past, it could have been some work to get maybe a mouse and keyboard work with GameCube because it has its proprietary controller inputs and you have to get the hardware to recognize and drivers and the operating system integration and all those things have to happen. So you don't really have that option with the older consoles, but now there's really no excuse. It's just what's going on? But Sony, you talked about how they're the last ones to kind of adopt this. They don't need to play nice. They're on top, right? They have more than double the competition's console sales. They're on top of the world. They're sailing. They're playing great. Why would they put more money towards this if it's not going to actually increase the foundation or increase their sales? They don't have to. They don't need to. They can just focus on what their strengths are, and that's first-party titles.
That's a good point. I saw in a explanation for why they might want to consider it, I saw a quote, and I don't remember who this quote was from, so I feel bad. I may have been someone from Sony for all I know, but one of the quotes I read that was relevant to cross-platform play was a quote about our current culture, and that is, the demand for cross-platform is going to be higher and higher because of the increased interconnectivity of our world as a result of things like social media and streaming services. So, for example, those streaming services do have exclusives. I think of things like music. You have music, you want to listen to it on iTunes? Great. Listen to it on iTunes. You want to listen to it on Spotify? Great. You want to share it across all your social media platforms? Great. You want to link your Facebook and your Instagram together to share posts so that all your friends on both platforms, whichever the one they prefer, can look at it? Awesome. Great. There's no you posted it on Instagram. You can't post it on Facebook now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if you want to, it's all interconnected. And so, that's part of our culture now, and gaming has been slow to adopt that because there's been this fragmentation. And again, the term fragmented player base is something I've only heard in the last 5 years, but it's something that has been a reality for gamers for the last 20. And it's something that I think, again, we've tolerated for a long time, but that's starting to change because, again, more and more platforms we're seeing this sort of interconnectivity, this sort of do what you want where you want with whom you want. And I think that gamers are starting to get now fed up, culturally speaking, with the sort of fragmentation of, well, this is arbitrary. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to play with TBone on my PC when he plays on his PlayStation, you know what I mean? And so I think that I think the game publishers are starting to catch wise to this. I think the publishers of the software have been catching on first.
Yep.
And now they're strong-arming the hardware developers into actually making it a reality.
Yeah. And you're not going in order of your questions because you just kind of jumped all over the place.
I did, but
what does what could a fully realized cross-platform look like? That's what we're trying to discuss right
Yeah,
now.
mhm.
And that is a completely interconnected player base across all the consoles, being able to play any game with any friend anywhere, as you've alluded to. And no longer does the decision to, like, which console are you going to buy come down to, like, South Park did that whole, like, special on the PS4 versus Xbox One and making fun of, like, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And, like, they just divided into sects, S-E-C-T-S, and, like, fought each other. And it was hilarious, but it was still, like, highlighting a really stupid, like, aspect of the gaming industry was that kids were trying to decide what platform to play on based on their friends that they're going to play with and not anything to do with the games or the things that, quote, matter for that console. It's like, people aren't buying Xbox for Halo or buying PlayStation for God of War. They're buying an Xbox so they can play Division 2 with their 10 friends over here. And I don't think that's twisted. Like, I think you should be choosing your platform based on things like the controller, what buttons I like, how it feels in my hand, or like what exclusive video games can I get with this console. Yeah. And the friend decision should just be not there. That should be cross-platform. I should be able to play anything I want with any of my friends.
Yeah. And I will in the description as we've been talking and as you were like outlining that, one of the things that came to mind was this doesn't necessarily mean the end of exclusives. Like, if we're talking about a fully cross-platform, like a fully realized cross-platform world,
right?
It's not. We've been saying the words any game you want with whomever you want. That's not true. I'm simply talking about third-party multiplayer games, single-player titles and exclusives. Like, even exclusive multiplayer titles can still be exclusive to their platforms, which would come into factor of what platform you choose for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Like Crackdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's a multiplayer game. It's an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
Halo. I mean, it's Microsoft exclusive.
Street Fighter V was another one for
Street Fighter
Sony
V was,
exclusive.
Yeah. So, but this is simply in regards to games that are coming out on multiple platforms like Borderlands. So.
And the Division 2, and those are more recent titles.
Yeah. So one of the things I also skipped and got ahead of myself on is we didn't actually talk about describing what are the different, other than cross-play, which is what we're mostly talking about, which is like the ability to play with people on any platform, but there are other forms of cross-platform experiences as well, and I want to talk about that. So do you want to run down what those are?
Yep, so we have cross-progression and cross-save, and cross-save is a little simpler than cross-progression, so we'll jump into that. Cross-save is similar to what Borderlands did when the new Handsome Collection had come out on the newer generation consoles, where they allowed you to move your save forward only on their respective consoles, which was the limitation that we're saying should not exist. So if you had a PlayStation 3 version of Borderlands 2, you could pick up right where you left off on a PlayStation 4. If you had a pre-existing installation of Borderlands 2 on your Xbox 360 and you get it for Xbox One, you could move that character forward, but you couldn't cross those console bounds, right? So I played all of Borderlands 2 and its DLC extensively on Xbox 360 and lost all of my progress when I started again on the PlayStation 4. So a cross-save is just being able to move your game save file to anything. If I play Tomb Raider on PS4, Shadows of the Tomb Raider, which TBone got for me for Christmas, actually, so thank you for that.
Not a problem.
If I want to pick that up on my Windows PC and continue playing where I left off, I should be able to load that save.
Yeah, it's remarkable to me, and again, just to pause there real quick and zoom in on cross-save. Cross-save is kind of like the step towards that. It's like a half step, or like a quarter step. It's not even like... It's like version 1.1 of cross-platform.
Yeah.
If, for example, version 2, like 2.0 is cross-play, version like 1.1 is cross-save. It's like the crappier younger brother. But despite its like, compromised state, like, oh, this is a compromise, I'm surprised more developers didn't adopt this. And the biggest offender in my mind was Destiny 2. When they were announced to be coming out to PC, to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, you're telling me that we could sell multiple copies of this game on different platforms because people like me and TBone would totally buy it on both PC and and PlayStation to play with our friends on both platforms. And yet they didn't even allow, I get the arguments as to why not allow them to play together, but at the very least for people like us who might have bought multiple copies, allow us to like not have to start over from scratch whenever we go over to that.
And that is a great segue to cross progression, because that's exactly what cross progression is. Cross save is more or less the state of a video game being transferred to the console and kind of loaded from a static environment. Like, oh, I just saved my game on this laptop hard drive. I'm going to pick it up on my Xbox, right? It's just a file. Whereas cross progression is like what you were saying with Destiny 2. It's a games as a service. So your character's progression is saved on a server somewhere. There's no reason for the PC version to have come out and you have to start over. Like, it should just load from Destiny's or from Bungie's servers, like the same exact character, your same account. You just link it, right? If it's your Battle.net account and your PlayStation account or your Xbox Live account, sure, you just link them all up. Social media platforms do it all the time. My Twitch account is linked to my Facebook, my Twitter. My Instagram feed is linked to my Twitter, my Facebook. Like, everything's linked. Why can't the Battle.nets be linked to the PlayStation, be linked to the Xbox? And when I log into Destiny, I'm logging into Destiny, regardless of where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. And that's cross-progression. And that also, this is going to be a good segue into the cons of cross-platform that we'll get into, because it's not a con for us, it's a con for the business makers. But I would like for that to include DLC content. If I bought some skin that I really love for my character, like, that should just carry over across platforms too.
Yeah, that makes me think of Overwatch. If I spent all this time either buying or purchasing or earning,
Apex Legends is fantastic because you have to earn almost everything in that game.
Right, yeah. It's like, I'll say I want to get the PC version to play with my friends who are playing on that platform. Oh, sorry. All those cool skins you got, all that cool stuff that you get to show off normally, you have to start over. Gone. Right. It's gone.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to, any gripes or complaints?
It's actually
experiences
prevented me from buying games. Like, for Diablo that came out on the Switch, I actually did not buy that for that, because I could not carry my progression from the PC over to that, because I put hundreds of hours from all the seasons I played, all those Paragon levels that I've gotten. It just takes time to grind all that and to start over and try to restart from scratch on the Switch, and which they also have their own seasons thing. And even the PS4 has their own seasons, and I can't do seasons on all 3 different consoles for 3 different characters, 3 different accounts. It just becomes convoluted, and it's just it's grindy for one account as it is, but to try to keep up with that for 2 or 3 different accounts is just takes so much work, and it's actually prevented me from getting them on other platforms for that reason.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. It's so interesting to me why and again, we will talk about the reasons why, but it's so interesting to me at the end of the day, like, that we're in this state, that we're in this place in 2019 in the gaming world, because everything you just said, like grinding, cost, blah, 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 like, all of that goes to show just how much more video games require of you. Like, the investment, like, in regards to entertainment, if we're talking about pure entertainment, the amount of investment required to be entertained by video games versus the investment required to be entertained by Instagram is insurmountably more. Yeah. Like, it's insane. And the fact that, like, Instagram, like, has cross-platform compatibility in ways that video games don't, and yet its investment level is, like, minuscule in comparison, is insane to me. It's just insane that we're here. So, cool. Well, we've been teasing it for a while, so let's go into the pros and cons. What are the advantages? Well, you know what? We've talked about a lot about the advantages. Let's talk about the limitations. Why has it taken so long? What are the arguments against cross-platform play? And why is it taking us so long to get there?
I will honestly challenge anyone who has a con from the player perspective. I don't think there's a single bad thing from a player perspective.
The biggest arguments that I've heard for, again, I've been thinking about this for like the past 5 years now. The biggest arguments that when I bring it up to people, almost all revolve around the competitive nature of games. And like I said, everybody I bring it up to says, well, it wouldn't be fair for console players.
Oh, that was highlighted recently. Yeah, now I just put my foot in my mouth. The Division 2 raid had come out. And it was for a long time reported that the fastest PC player were able, brand new raid, right? High level gear. You had to matchmake 8 people together. Sorry, there's no matchmaking. You had to plan 8 people together to go do this. All this brand new content with crazy complicated boss fights and all these strategies you had to employ and like balancing what of the 8 players' classes are, what their gear is. I mean, really intricate stuff. Super difficult. It took PC players 5 hours to complete. The first time. Took them 5 hours to get through this raid. Took console players 36 hours.
Yeah. That's insane.
36 to 5.
And that's a PvE game. That's a PvE. Right. That's a cooperative experience. That's not even talking about esports competitive games. Like, you're talking the best players in the world are all PC players, period. Yep. Hands down. And it's because of one thing, single thing. It's one tiny little detail. And we've talked a lot about it in our our controllers episode a long time ago. We did a whole episode where we deep dive into all the different types of controllers. And one of the things we highlighted that we'll bring up now again because it's relevant is mouse and keyboard is hands down the single best level of control that you can have over a video game. That's demonstrably the best that we've seen so far.
Right.
Granted, there's probably tons of different like controllers you could imagine. And there's also the fact that like as a younger generation grows up, who knows, maybe touchscreen kids who grew up with touchscreens will be like insane in, 5-10 years.
That could be better than a mouse and
That could be better
later,
than a mouse and
those kids grow up to make their own games.
Yeah.
They like start to make things touchscreen.
Yeah,
compatible
exactly.
in a
Like
way
we're
we
not saying
haven't
it's
seen before.
we're not saying that it's this, there's no like physical reason why other than it just seems to be like people can exert the most control, can get the game to do what they want on a mouse and keyboard better than controllers.
Mm-hmm.
So the argument all rests around the fact that when competing at the highest level, console players have a significant disadvantage.
Let's just say, for sake of argument here, that consoles adopted mouse and keyboard across the board, right?
Yeah.
So what's the argument against cross-platform then?
Then it goes away.
If that's the only one, is that
I can't think of anything.
right?
So.
Like, why is this a bad thing for the players? I'm gonna get into why it's a bad thing for business.
I mean, you might have to buy additional peripherals if you want to compete at the highest level, but that's on you. If you want to compete at the highest level, you should
So
be doing
instead
that
of,
anyways.
I'm going to go build this $1,500 gaming PC with a mouse and keyboard so that I can play competitively with my buddies over here when this new game comes out, or I got to go buy this $500 Xbox One X because all of my friends are playing over there. Now it's, I just need a $30 keyboard and
Yeah.
$10 mouse.
Yeah, I
Cool.
mean, people will make the argument, and I think developers, like, I think Sony and Microsoft would make the argument that, well, we want players to play their way. What that means is we want players to play on the controller that we've dictated for them, that we've designed for them.
Yeah, because the day we see Xbox controllers working on a PlayStation,
Right.
I think that's pretty far away.
Yeah, if they truly, and that's what I mean, is if they truly wanted people to play their way, then they would design, and it's just so crazy to me that they don't, sure, license your own mouse and keyboard, make it simpler. Like, a keyboard, you don't need it to be the full QWERTY, you don't need, like, the semicolon button and the plus and minus sign. Like, you can make a simplified version that has like the keystrokes, and it would still have more inputs, significantly more inputs than a controller could possibly have.
Yeah.
And then license it and sell it for $60, $70. You know what I mean? Like, they can make money off of that kind of thing. It's just another peripheral that probably doesn't really cost them very much to make and manufacture. Although then, there is the argument of distribution and manufacturing costs, but I don't know. It seems to me like it would be a no-brainer. There's enough of a hardcore, even if like 3% of PlayStation owners would buy it. That's still a huge amount. Termite's doing the math in his head.
I really am. That's 300,000.
Yeah, 300,000 times $60. That's a ton of money.
I don't know how much it would cost
decent
to
chunk.
research and develop and to manufacture and print and ship.
You mean research and develop?
You have to research. You have to R&D the form factor.
R&D
what's the angle the wrist is going to be? Like, what is the tactile response of the button?
Yeah, and how long have keyboard manufacturers been researching that?
Well, you can just copy and paste.
Just
off
team
of
up with someone.
One, but
yeah.
if you think of 4 different laptops, they all have 4 different keyboards. They feel different, and one of them is going to be better for different players.
Yeah,
Like, that
team up
costs
with
money.
someone who's done half the research for you already. It doesn't take you
Well,
that
that's
long.
obviously what you would do, but you still got to pay them.
Yeah.
So anyway, you make up a good point. Mouse and keyboard and all those things. Good segue into talking about the publishers and the developers of these games, right? Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo are the 3 big ones, plus PC. PC's fragmented within itself. They all want as much money as they possibly can, and they all want you to play on their platforms, on their servers, with their microtransactions. And I'm saying the biggest con from their perspective is if I'm PlayStation, I don't want someone playing Fortnite on Xbox, buying V-Bucks through the Xbox Live store, and then I have to honor that purchase from that platform. I don't like it, right? That's the businessy kind of like, if I'm Sony, I want them to come to my platform and repurchase those on my platform. So then you have this weird like business competition fighting happening on the back end that only affects the players negatively as they try to garner amount of money, right? And it's all business. Video games are a business. It's the whole industry. That's how it works. So it's capitalism, and that's the con for cross-platform from that kind of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they make exclusivity deals too. Like, we brought up Destiny a lot. The question becomes, Destiny for PlayStation has a bunch of exclusive content. There was like a whole strike that was only available on PlayStation, and there were guns that you can only get on PlayStation. And PlayStation, Sony probably paid Bungie a lot of money, or Activision a lot of money for that.
Yeah, and there's like pre-order deals. If you pre-order on PlayStation,
so
you get these
who
little
honors how do
tchotchkes in the
you-
game,
yeah.
and if you pre-order on Xbox, you get these, and then there's so you have the whole pre-order campaigns running for each platform and exclusive little nicks in each one. So I mean, it's a convoluted mess from a business perspective because they're all vying for your dollar.
Yeah. Any thoughts, T-Bone, about cons, potential reasons, hang-ups for why it might have taken us this long to get to talking about crossplay as a normal thing?
It could cut back on sales a little bit because people buying 2 copies of a game, 3 copies of a game. So now if you do cross-platform, now you just need to buy one and you're good to go for everything. So, and adding that to multiple people, several 100,000, that adds up. So.
Yeah, so even if you're Activision and you're publishing Destiny, you're like tripling your sales because people are buying it 3 times.
Yeah.
Versus you're cutting your sales if you get down to 1. And Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, they don't really feel that too much. So they probably don't care about that. But if you're trying to make a game, you're a developer. Then,
It also makes the pressure is already really high on platforms to have exclusives. So the pressure goes up even further for them to have more exclusive games because that's all they're riding on now. Right. No longer are they like, oh, well, the social pressure to get our platform and play these third-party games on our platform is high because because we can count on, your theoretical friend circle to pressure you. Sony would be able to count on my friend circle to get me to buy their new PS5. But now if I can, you mean that game that comes out on all these platforms is going to be playable with my friends if I play it on PC and not drop like the PC that I already have through work that work paid for and not drop $500 on your new console. Great. I'm going to do that. So then suddenly it's like, what's my motivation to buy a PS5? My motivation becomes exclusives. So Sony has to make sure their exclusives are really good and make me want to get them. Fortunately, they're in that position. But then again, Microsoft, which is already struggling in the exclusive game, like, okay, well, what's one motivation, Microsoft, to buy your Xbox? Like, you better have some exclusives because there's no other reason for me to do that, especially if I can play our games on PC, which is interesting to me because Microsoft is the one pushing so hard for cross-platform play.
Well, yeah, because they have the PC market in their hands. Like, they have Windows 10.
Right. I was going to say, that's
they're like, if we're going to cross-platform, the only ones we're going to, quote, lose are Nintendo and PlayStation, and we're still going to get the entire PC gaming market, which is bigger than all 3 of the other consoles combined.
Right. God forbid Microsoft sell more copies of Windows 10.
So, of course, Microsoft's going to push it. From a business perspective, it makes sense for them.
Yeah, they're just going to make it, you just can't play this on Linux, or you can't play this on Mac. That's going to be where they start to nail the exclusivity.
I know someone I work with who's in the Linux world, and he's limited to what games he can play based on what drivers are supported through Linux. And then I just make fun of him for drivers and PC gaming in general. Like, just go buy a PlayStation. You can play everything you want and find it all cheaper. But he laughs and goes on. But yeah, that's like exactly it. Microsoft's going to push this. They're also the underdog in this console race, so they have nothing to lose.
Right, yeah.
Like, as far as their public facing,
people are already going to be buying
all of this
PlayStation.
Altruistic, pseudo-altruistic motivations being presented out front, and they can look good by reaching across the aisle, so to speak, to PlayStation and Nintendo and say, hey, you can play our games anywhere. But really, if you look at it, their whole Windows 10
they're
PC
salty
games.
about Sony making them look bad in 2012.
Yeah, they are.
And now they're going to get to make Sony look bad. Like, everyone's making Sony look so bad. Granted,
that's what
Sony will survive.
Business, right?
But yeah, exactly. Like Sony
make the person on top look bad.
Yeah.
Sony did it to Microsoft 2013, 2012 with the whole PlayStation 4 announcement.
We're going to have a disc drive. We'll still let you trade in games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is that now.
Yeah.
We're going to have
right?
crossplay. We're going to have backwards compatibility. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, cool. Let's with our final question, I want to talk about why now, which is to say, like, we've talked all of this. We've talked for a long time about why not now, but like, why now? Why is it suddenly happening now? What are the conditions that are leading this idea of crossplay? Again, we've seen 5 games announced in the last few months, within the last year, that have said, hey, we're going to have crossplay now. It started with Fortnite strong-arming Sony into forcing them to do crossplay. And then from there on, it seems like other people have said, oh, well, why not our game? If Fortnite can do it, why not us?
Yep.
So, but what are some of those, again, other than, some of these big developers strong-arming the companies, what are some of the other reasons why you think it's happening now? It's suddenly happening all at once.
You've alluded to it already with the social media platforms being completely linked, and they're all the same, right? It doesn't matter whether you're on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. It's all the same. And so we have that. And that's kind of the norm on our casual lives front. We also have things like internet TV. We can watch NBC through anything we want to. Our phones, our TVs, our DVRs. You can go the old-fashioned way and get a cable box. You can get it over the air. But you can still get your TV anywhere. You talked about music. You can get music anywhere you want. You have Android Auto. You got Apple in your car, on your phone, on your tablets, on your PCs, TVs. And you have Bluetooth speaker boxes. You can listen to anything you want, anywhere you want. So it's in our culture and in our lives, movies, right? Streaming. You can get any streaming service you want. You can see it almost like as soon as they come out of the theater, they're on like Netflix or Hulu or whatever streaming. Redbox has a streaming service, so you can get all of the content that entertains you and all the things you want to use. You can get them anywhere, any platform. It doesn't matter. Your phone essentially is just a window into the internet to get everything except for video games, right? So the soil is ripe and fertile for cross-platform games. We're starting to expect it, and we're starting to now see the void. It's more painful and bigger than it has ever been in our gaming lives. And then you talked about, what was the second thing you mentioned? It was, I mentioned that I'm sorry, the architectures of all of the hardware are now ubiquitous. They're all the same. So it now, instead of like requiring your development team to recompile the game on an entirely different processor, which is what gimped the PlayStation 3 with their super crazy 7-core Cell processor. If you wanted to put a game on PS3, it required a massive development effort to get your game to work and to perform correctly using that hardware to its best of its ability, where now you can just compile it for Xbox, go over here and compile it for PlayStation, and it's the same. Minus the hardware changes that you have to do for how beefy each one is. So there's a little bit of optimization, but it's nowhere near as hard. So we have the same, your PC, your Xbox, your PlayStation, they're all the same. They're just PCs. They're all computers.
Yeah.
So why not? Mm-hmm. Right? And we have interconnecting games and servers, and we have the cloud system all happening, so they're all just kind of peering into the internet anyway. Mm-hmm. So why not have cross-progression and cross-save?
Yeah, Termite pretty much covered my thoughts on that. Everything being cloud-based and, the Battle Royale culture that's out and multiplayer just becoming huge now. It just seems like it's just drawing a lot more attention, drawing a lot of new gamers in, some more casuals into that. And, the popularity of gaming itself has gotten really high, and so therefore that's bringing even more attention to the idea of crossplay and people being able to play with whoever they want to play with. So.
I feel like a lot of things have been happening in the background. This is kind of like it's been under the surface, like a shark, just kind of coasting under the surface, and then suddenly it's like popped up, and it all seems like it's happening at once. But the reality is, like, number one, you've seen a lot of, well, for one, I think mobile gaming has had a huge impact. The ability for cell phones to become more powerful enough to handle games like Fortnite has made it so that, like these AAA experiences are now coming to mobile, and mobile players are starting to, I think we're probably the first ones to be like, wait, what? Because mobile players kind of represent they represent an interesting demographic for video games, which is these are the gamers who are not gamers. Yeah. Or they're like the young, or they're very young gamers too, kids. And so those kids are like, well, my friend's playing Fortnite over there or playing Minecraft on the PC. Why can't I play with him on my tablet? You know what I mean? So I think that's the worst. So those players are the ones who probably spoke up first. And all it took was, again, a tipping point. If you were to tell, and Fortnite was a phenomenon in and of itself. The Fortnite wasn't even really designed to be a battle royale game, and yet they co-opted the battle royale system from PUBG, and then became an sensation because of their kind of cartoony characters, allowed for, I can't imagine a lot of parents letting their, 9-year-old play PUBG, but Fortnite, it's all colorful and cartoony and fun. So it's kind of like the Minecraft of battle royales, and became a huge success, massive success. I remember Fortnite being announced like 3 years ago. Yeah. I think 2016 was at E3, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, whatever. It looks like
they didn't even have battle royale.
Yeah, they didn't have it. Exactly. Yeah. And so no one could have expected Fortnite blowing up the way it did. And then once it did, Epic Games was suddenly in a position to be like, well, cool. All of our players want this cross-platform stuff, so we're going to commit to making it cross-platform. And every single one of the hardware developers fell in line, except for Sony at first. And then it maybe became such a big deal in the gaming industry, and they made such a big deal about it. But again, all of those things, like you said, streaming, cloud-based, mobile, the phones getting stronger, tablets getting stronger, and more and more people wanting to play together, building up over the past decade, leading to this moment where suddenly it was like, well, why not? Yeah, that's exactly what it takes. All it took was someone big and strong enough to leverage their influence. So as much as Fortnite is not our favorite thing, gotta hand it to Epic Games on that one for being able to make this a reality, because now we're in a position where there's a good possibility that, when Borderlands takes the PC gaming show this week, they'll probably talk about crossplay and whether or not they've successfully strong-armed Sony into letting them do it, because they said they committed to wanting to do it. So,
and Google Stadia coming out, announcing theirs with everything being cloud-based, that eliminates all hardware limitations. So anybody has free reign that you can just log in through a browser, tablet, anything, and just anybody can just do that, and anybody can play with anybody, and you can just eliminate those barriers that way.
Yeah, you don't even need hardware at all.
Yeah.
And I would love to know a developer who would say no to some Google money. When Google comes to them and they're like, hey, you develop your game on Stadia, you know darn well they're going to go do that. And so you talk about buying exclusivity rights. Epic's been doing that with the Epic Game Store. They come in and they're like, hey, I want this on the Epic Game Store. Well, Google's going to be doing that with Stadia, and we're already seeing games announced on the Stadia platform. And if they're already on the cloud, they're already on the servers, then why not allow PlayStation and Xbox to do the same thing? So we're seeing it advance there too.
We had a whole episode about game streaming where we dig more into the idea of what game streaming is, but it's relevant to this conversation because think about how it's one thing to be like, okay, well, I pay a monthly subscription to Stadia, or I pay a monthly subscription to Xbox, xCloud, or whatever, so there are going to be some exclusive things that I can only play on that platform.
Right.
But the idea, it's ridiculous to say, well, I can only play my Google Stadia games on this Samsung phone. I can't play it on iPhone, because, iPhone doesn't have crossplay, like cloud, the players and developers and consumers all need to start thinking about what does a world without consoles look like? What does a world without dedicated hardware look like? Because it's coming faster than you might think.
Yeah.
And one of the implications of that is crossplay is a given at that point because you're just logging into a server. There's no reason why, you can't play with all the other people who are logging in that server based on what hardware you have. So hardware limitations, again, when we're talking about cross-platform, essentially that's what it boils down to, is this is a hardware limitation. I don't have that console. I don't have a gaming PC. So that's fragmenting me and preventing me. It's a barrier of entry. Yeah. And if the barriers go away, if we're already looking at staring down the barrel of the barriers going away in the first place, then there's no reason why this cross-play stuff shouldn't be a given in the next 10 years.
We also see, this is kind of a tangent, we're going to go off the road here for a minute, but if you think about the idea of DLC and microtransactions, there's a trend in the industry now to move away from season passes and to move away from DLC on games as a service. Mm-hmm. Like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the newest one, they've already said there's no season pass and it's cross-platform because they don't want to fragment the player base. Because when those new season passes come out, only the people who can afford to buy the $40 thing or the $30 or $50 like season pass get to play the new content. So now you've got a two-player base. You have the non-season pass players playing together, and you have season pass players playing together. And quietly, that's gone. So if they're defragmenting that player base, now we're coming back to the idea of cross-platform and defragmenting even more. Mm-hmm. It just kind of adds fuel to that fire. Circling way back around to what TBone was talking about, he brought to my attention about mobile platforms. How many Android phone makers are there? LG, right. Samsung, Huawei, OnePlus, Google itself, right? All of those support one single operating system. Yeah. And that's Android. Now, granted, it's catered to each of the hardware and each of its features and things, and they try to add to and take away from and simplify and whatever to be more appealing and compete with each other for sales. But you have a society that has how many iPhone generations still are used today? I know people with iPhone 6s, and we're on 10. Uh-huh. That's 4 generations of iPhones that all have the same app store that play the same games. And you can, there's very, very limited things where it says your phone's not good enough for this game because of hardware requirements. But when that becomes the norm, when that's your understanding of the world, and then you go buy a PlayStation and someone wants to play Division 2 with you on Xbox and you can't, it's just like this hard, pump the brakes. Are you, what? I can't do this? This is weird.
Man, I gotta spend $400 on a new console just to play with you?
And start over?
Consumers generally have a hard time being told they can't do something.
Yeah.
Granted, sometimes consumers also understand they can be realistic. But in this case, this is one of those cases where, you can't do this is completely arbitrary and not realistic.
Right.
It's entirely realistic for me to expect to be able to play with my friends if I buy your game and it says it's multiplayer and my friend's like, I have that game too and I love it, let's play together. Oh, sorry, I can't play with you because you didn't buy this particular brand of thing that I like. Yep. I think we're starting to finally get to the point where we see through that, and it's cool. I think it's the movement towards crossplay is cool, and I do think it's interesting that even Sony, who are the ones who have the least to gain, I guess, by it, are even realizing if we try to stem this tide, we're going to get mowed over. So let's just go with it.
Right. Yeah, at some point when you're not cross-platform, you will look bad. Mm-hmm. Right? That will be a negative
Sony
thing.
already has got a lot of bad press last year. This year?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. They already have had a lot of heat as a result of just the Fortnite debacle. So
and Rocket League too.
Yeah. So, well, cool. I think that pretty much wraps it up. Any closing thoughts from either T-Bone or Termite?
Well,
are you excited about cross-platform?
I am excited. It also a pro I can mention too is that increases longevity of games as well. Games people move on. They play games, they move on, and then the multiplayer dies out. You try to join a multiplayer session, and no one's online to play it. So, by combining 2, 3, 4 different consoles all together in one thing, that increases that longevity. You can expand your multiplayer sessions, and it makes it much more fun for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, I never even either.
Put 3 minds together and you have all kinds of...
Yeah.
And for you trophy hunters out there and achievement hunters, it works for that too.
Yeah. There's so many platinums that are locked behind servers shutting down.
Yeah, that's a whole... Stuff. That's a weird, complicated thing, though. How do you handle trophies
and achievements?
Crossplay, yeah.
Steam achievements.
I didn't think about that.
I played Borderlands 2 on PC forever, so let's hop into the alternate universe where crossplay has been available for the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. What did it look like for Penguin to buy a PS4, get Borderlands on it, and then be like, oh, cool, I already have that achievement unlocked, and I already have that trophy unlocked because I got it on PC. On my Steam achievement.
That's why I didn't get the Borderlands platinum, because I did it on Xbox. I got those achievements there. So
I already got that one.
I don't want to do this again.
I want to, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting.
You best believe Mr. Platinum over here, Trophy Hunter Galore, has spent way too much time researching how to port your Borderlands 2 save to PlayStation 3 and load it up to get trophies there, and then move it forward to PS4 to get even more trophies there. Yeah. It's extremely complicated, and you risk losing everything.
There is a way to hack trophies on the older consoles, but yes, it's very risky. You could get banned from Sony by doing that.
Yeah. Crazy. But cool. All right, well, we want to hear your thoughts too, listeners, so feel free to let us know what do you think of this whole crossplay thing? Do you think it's ridiculous? Do you think there's cons that we aren't considering, downsides, or do you think it's about time that they allow this? What are your stories? What are the games that you wish you could have played with people in that aforementioned alternate universe where crossplay has been available for 10 years? What do you feel like you're missing out on not having crossplay? So we want to hear those conversations. Termite, where's the best place that they can tell us those things and engage conversation with us?
I'm not going to go through the whole rigmarole again, but I will say if you want to give us feedback, if you want to interact with us and answer these questions for yourself to interact with us, please at us at Twitter, at 80-Bit Podsmash, or look at Reddit and start a subreddit thread.
Yeah, as far as we know, there's no barrier of entry there. You can start any conversation you want as long as it's not, unfamily friendly.
Well, we are mods.
We will moderate, obviously, but, we have to have people posting things first for us to moderate it. So go ahead, start a conversation on there. We'd be happy to engage with you and continue this conversation there. T-Bone, thank you for joining us. Do you have any interest in the good people of the internet finding you, or are you happy to remain more or less anonymous? Tell us where or if the good people of the internet can find you on any social media to hear your thoughts on things.
I pretty much stay anonymous, but I do partake in the Reddit discussions, so the TMB83 is my Reddit name. So I post there mostly for the 80-Bit Podsmash related things. But other than that, I stay low-key. So.
All right. Well, we're happy to keep you low-key then. But yeah, if you want to ask T-Bone here any questions, then just Reddit would probably be this place because he'll see it and he'll be happy to answer any questions. Embarrassing stories about Termite. Definitely, we'll start a thread about that.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
And T-Bone can totally give us all the goods.
Yeah.
Resident termite expert.
Yeah, resident termite expert.
And I forgot to add a platform that I didn't even talk about tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Twitch.tv/80-Bit Podsmash.
Oh, snap. It's happening, y'all.
Is it? I did not know this myself.
Yeah, we're going to be, we have a PlayStation camera between the two of us that we'll be sharing, and we'll have a schedule up soon. Probably by now, actually. We'll be streaming. So, check us out there. If you want to know exact times and details about that, then check our social media posts, the aforementioned Twitter and all that. We'll have times and dates.
You can always find us here every Monday at midnight.
Yup.
Every week.
Yup, exactly. So, all right. Well, next week we are talking about, oh, you know what? It's funny because I'm pretty sure last week we said we were talking about this, But we're actually going to do our Uncharted episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because we totally advertised. So for those of you who are expecting a Uncharted episode today, sorry, we did a last-minute change of schedule.
And this is why Termite didn't want to add which topics we're going to talk about next.
That's funny.
Yeah. But that's okay.
Hey, I wasn't even scheduled to be on this podcast
Exactly.
myself, so this shows you how unorganized you guys can be.
Spontaneity is a wonderful and amazing thing.
Totally fine. So, we'll be doing an Everything Uncharted episode next week, and it's going to be awesome.
See you next week.